Cheers. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Hopefully Here. I'm talking, you are listening to, I suppose, but you can always participate in the comments down below. Backlist Books. These are the books that are kind of in between that. They're not classics. They're not the hotly anticipated new releases. They're the books that have been published in the last little while, but tend to get put to the back burner when kind of the new shiny book comes out. And I am trying to make more of an effort this year to read from people's backlists, particularly because they're easier to get my hands on at the library, but also I just don't want them to get forgotten. I know there are some incredible authors out there that I've just discovered, and it's always fun and surprising to see that they have a backlist available and more books published that I can get my hands on. And I just want to not forget about those books, I think is my ultimate goal. I want to discover some new gems, maybe read a book that at one point was really hyped and I missed out on. It's a little reading project for myself, and I'm really excited about it. I have a list of, I think, 13 authors that I kind of want to focus on. Maybe you have a list that you want to focus on as well. Maybe we can add to each other's. Let me know if you have an author that you're working through or somebody that you'd like to get through. And then I also have just 2 recommendations. Authors that I have actually read their entire catalog, but I think that if you haven't, maybe worth picking up. Starting off with 2 very prolific authors, nothing surprising about this. Barbara Kingsolver, Margaret Atwood are 2 authors that I have absolutely read a pitiful amount from, but I have loved everything that I have and would really like to make more of an effort to get through their backlist. I did read Barbara Kingsolver, I believe her debut novel, The Bean Trees, which was published in, I think, the 80s at some point. I did read that in January, and I was thinking about going in publication order, but actually what I think I'm going to do is just read what I find interesting. I would really like to get to the Poisonwood Bible. I know that I have read the Poisonwood Bible at some point in my life, but I remember absolutely nothing about it. And so that is something that I think I would like to get to this year. If I can get to like 3 or 4 of these authors' books each year until I'm done, that would make me pretty happy. More or less, it's fine. I'm not setting a hard goal for myself. The only goal, hopefully, is that at some point to say, yes, I have read all of their stuff. As for Margaret Atwood, again, I don't have anything specific that I'm like, that's the next one on my list. I would like to read, I think it's called The Blind Assassin, and then she has a trilogy as well that I believe I started reading at some point. Something happened and I didn't finish it. I think I just wasn't in the mood, but would like to go back. And then obviously The Testaments. The Handmaid's Tale was one of my favorite books last year, and this is a follow-up to that. I cannot imagine it's going to be as good as The Handmaid's Tale, so I might be let down, but it is something that I definitely do want to read because of how much I enjoyed The Handmaid's Tale last year. An author that I read from for the first time last year, Catherine Hernandez, and I read Scarborough by her. She has a couple other books out. I am unfortunately only able to get my hands on one of those backlists through my library. I have access to quite a few libraries, but for some reason her newest release is not one that they have put into circulation yet. I know I can request it, and I may see if I can get a request, but I have requested a couple of books through the library before and not a single one of them has been approved. So I don't have a lot of hopes for that, but I read, the one that I can get is called Crosshairs, I believe, and that is one that is definitely going to be on my list. If you haven't read from Catherine Hernandez, she is somebody that I would say is definitely worth your time. There are a couple authors on this list that I thought I had read most of their stuff, and it turns out I have not. One of those is Anthony Doerr. I adore his writing. I've loved everything I read by him. His debut novel, About Grace, do I have that here? This right here. About Grace was such a hidden gem for me when I found this. I read it simply because of the author. I didn't know anything about it, and the story is actually really, really neat. And then obviously Cloud Cuckoo Land, which is right there, was one of my favorite reads of 2022, I believe. But there are a couple by him that I haven't read. I haven't read any of his short stories, and I have not read his nonfiction. So typically, if I haven't read an author's nonfiction, that doesn't bother me too much. I'm pretty particular about the nonfiction that I read, and I also don't have the greatest track record with enjoying short stories, but I know how much I love his writing, and so I'm going to give him a chance. I have one of his short story collections on hold coming to me from the library, and then I believe his other stuff is going to be a longer wait, but I also have on hold. I'm really excited about it. I have high hopes just because of how much I love his writing. I don't know when his next novel is going to come out. I will take what I can get, and if it is having to read short stories and a nonfiction, I will do that. Patrick DeWitt is another author that I thought I had read everything by, but his first novel called Absolutions, I'll put a picture, is one that I haven't read yet, and I am in fact able to get it from my library, which makes me very happy. But he is another author. If you haven't read from him, if you've only read his most recent work, which was The Librarianist, which I absolutely adored, his entire collection is spectacular. I love his writing. He's very unique. He has a very particular writing and voice, and I absolutely adore it. And all of his stories are so different from one another, which I think can be really challenging sometimes. Sometimes you go to an author because they're very comforting, you know what to expect. But with Patrick DeWitt, with his writing and his storytelling, I never know exactly what kind of story I'm going to get. And I really, really appreciate that about him. So he is somebody that I would say if you pick up one and you love it, he's definitely somebody you need to go back and read all of his works from. Sarah Winman is an author who I have been slowly working my way through her works, and I've read most of her stuff. She has one book left for me, which is A Year of Marvelous Things, I believe is what it's called. I cannot get it. My libraries do not have it. I'm not really sure how or when I'm going to be able to get my hands on this book, but it is one that I am definitely going to. I read her debut novel, When God Was a Rabbit, this year, and I really, really liked it. Still Life by her was one of my favorites of 2022. There's something about her writing that I absolutely love, and again, her storytelling is incredible. Her characters are great, and I've loved everything that I've read by her. So she's somebody else whose backlist I'm trying to get through, but I'm a little held up because of library availability. It might be one I have to either request, or maybe it would be one that I would consider buying. I'm not really sure, but she's somebody that I definitely want to make sure I complete her entire backlist. There are 3 authors in kind of the thriller category that I would like to get to: Nikki French, S.A. Cosby, and Gillian Flynn. So really quickly, Gillian Flynn, she is somebody I would say if you've only read Gone Girl by her other thrillers, Dark Places and Sharp Things or something like that, are really good, very disturbing. But she has one, I believe it was her debut, it's called The Grown Up. I have not read yet, and I would like to get to that one. I think that could be a lot of fun because she has such a gritty, disturbing way of writing stories. And speaking of kind of gritty, S.A. Cosby obviously is a very gritty storyteller in the way he portrays characters and social commentary. I think his writing is incredible. I've loved everything I've read by him, and I didn't know he has a book out from way before, I don't know exactly when it was published, called The Darkest Prayer, which I believe was his debut novel. I had no idea. I thought Blacktop Wasteland was his debut. It is not, and I am definitely going to be putting that on my must-read list. Like I said, S.A. Cosby I really enjoy, and it's surprising how much I enjoy him because I am not a gritty, gory, I don't really normally like that type of graphic nature in my books, but somehow there's just something about the way S.A. Cosby writes that I can get past it. I think he's absolutely incredible in his writing. I think his stories are they're fun, being the operative word, but they're different, and I really, really enjoy that about his books. And then finally and thirdly, for the thriller, Nikki French, who is a husband-wife duo, and I've read the Frida Klein series, but I haven't read any of their other stuff, and I really enjoyed Frida Klein. I enjoy a book that is thrillery, mystery, but isn't too heavy. Like S.A. Cosby tends to be pretty heavy, and I didn't find Nikki French in their Frida Klein series to be too heavy. So they are somebody that I would really, really like to get to. I know that they have a new novel coming out, I think in February. So that's not a backlist title, but they have other stuff that obviously I would like to slowly start making my way through because it is quite the long list of books by them that I can get to and have access to. One book that I would really like to get to is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I actually own this book. I bought it secondhand a couple of months ago and haven't gotten around to it yet. And it is such a famous book that I'm feeling a little left out. I feel like I really need to get to that one. It's definitely one that has a lot of hype behind it. I feel like I missed out on the original train, but that hype seems to have continued. You always hear about, what is it, Dark Academia? I think it's kind of one of the original Dark Academia books. So The Secret History by Donna Tartt is absolutely a backlist book on my list. I really enjoyed the book Goldfinch by her. I don't know that she's written, I don't know what else she would have written, if anything else. I don't think she's an author that comes out with something every other year or every year. So I don't think that there's a huge list of novels that I'm missing by her, but if I was to read The Secret History and really enjoy it as I did The Goldfinch, I would probably do a little bit more research into what else she has out there. Another book I actually own physically and really need to get around to reading because I've had it on my shelf now for, I don't know, maybe 2 years, is Kindred by Octavia Butler. And I know she is a very famous science fiction writer, I believe is what she does. And this is a book that could potentially be considered a classic. I'm not sure exactly where it is in terms of the timeline of books, but Kindred is one that I've heard nothing but incredible things about. And she's also an author that, if I was to love this book, I know she has a ton of other ones out there and would probably be very much worth my time. But we'll start with Kindred. It's small. I know that she has a couple of fairly large books, but she's somebody who has a very large backlist that hopefully I will get to. And then finally, 2 authors that I actually would like to get to. Ruth Ozeki has a book from quite a while ago called A Tale for the Time, I believe, and I would like to get to that book because I did enjoy A Book of Form and Emptiness, I think is the one that I read by her, and I'm very curious to see how her writing changes between books because they sound like very different stories. And then we also have Colson Whitehead, who writes, I believe, mostly historical fiction. I have read The Nickel Boys and The Underground Railway by him. Really enjoyed both of them. I like historical fiction, and he's definitely somebody who has quite the backlist. I think he has 13 books or something like that, 10, 11, I'm not sure. I believe he's in the double digits anyways, and I would really like to maybe make a priority to read more of his stuff. He hasn't been my favorite always. I've read a couple by him that took me a little while to get into, and I think in fact I did DNF one of his books, but he's somebody who I would like to continue to try with because I really enjoy the way he writes historical fiction. Okay, those are all the authors that I'm going to put a little bit of effort into hopefully getting to in the next year-ish, we'll see. But another author that I think if you have the time that you could probably find some really great stuff from, Halal El-Yen is a Palestinian-American author, and she wrote The Arsonist City, but she also has a book called Salt Houses. And she does talk a lot about the Palestinian diaspora, and it's really well done. Her characters are very compelling, her family dynamics, what it is to be spread out among the world and not really knowing where home is. It's totally fascinating and, you know, current for the times that we're living in right now. I would say, I mean, it's always been current, but maybe more front and center for the times that we're living in. And I would say if you have the chance, maybe check her out and her backlist book. So there you have it. The books that I'm going to read, maybe a few that you would like to pick up. Let me know if any of these are on your radar or if you've loved any of these books. If you've hated them, I don't want to know because I don't need my judgment tainted. But I thank you very much for being here, and I hope to see you soon. I'm reading a pretty exciting book right now, and I'm starting a reading vlog on it. That should be up hopefully next week at some point. But I hope your day is going super well. Enjoy your weekends. I'll see you later. Bye.